go live. All right, we're just going to check the YouTube stream really quickly because it's telling me I don't have permissions. It's the same thing I did last time, which is making me be in vibrational disharmony with YouTube and Zoom. Okay, we're just going to do recording from here, and then we don't have to worry about being live.
Perfect.
All right, welcome. I am so excited to talk to my former client, Deb. She's going to introduce herself. We're going to talk about all the results that she's created in her business, and we are celebrating her very first book launch. So thank you, Deb. Welcome.
Thank you, Cammie.
Absolutely. So let's just talk about a little bit what you do, how you help people, and then let them know. I like to let them know in the beginning where they can find you.
Okay, perfect. Well, I am an intuitive medium, and I am located in upstate New York. I do intuitive education, so teaching people intuitive skills, mediumship, psychic work, those kinds of things. I also work with people in a variety of different ways. I do a one-to-one mentoring program where I can do skills, skill building, shadow work, all of those kinds of things. People can find me at www.debdecelle.com. That's my website. And so many exciting things to share today and so many exciting results after working with you for a year. Absolutely incredible.
I love this. And this is going to be so great. So for those of you, those of you listening who are intuitive, fantastic. You're in the right place. If you're spiritually inclined, if you're questioning, if you're curious, you're going to want to listen because I believe Deb has been my first student of spiritually aligned selling, and she's really found her way through that groove. So let's talk about that a little bit because I have a group program. It's called Permission to Profit. That's where I'm teaching all of this stuff. So if anybody wants to know how to work with me, you can find that in the links below. But I'm curious, let's just start from like where you were when you found me. Like, I love to have that version of you now that you're sitting in this beautiful blue office that you didn't even know was possible. So tell us where you were, what was going on in your life and business, and why you thought coaching was a good time for coaching.
Okay. So I was actually working as an intuitive medium, but I was also still working in education with at-risk youth, which is something that I am incredibly passionate about, but I was very burnt out. And, certainly it's never the kids, it's the other adults. So I was very burnt out. I was bringing in, maybe $500, sometimes 1,000 tops for my business working as a psychic medium, just because I didn't have the time and all those sorts of things. So I was feeling really kind of down, knowing that I needed a change, feeling burnt out. And someone recommended that I set up a consult with you. And so I did. And when we jumped on, it was interesting because I felt all the feels. I felt so many different things when we had chatted, and thinking, okay, is this for me? Is this something I can afford? Is this worth my time? Am I just making this all up in my head? All of those kinds of, self-defeating thoughts. And, I was really in a place where I was like, what's my next step? What am I going to do? I really want to kind of grow my business and step into alignment to live my life with purpose and to be truly aligned. And I knew that going to school every day and coming home completely worn out, burnt out, frustrated, aggravated, I knew that wasn't it for me, and then when I would see, clients and do readings and things like that, of course, that would bring me joy and excitement and purpose. But those were just little tiny snippets of my life. And so I guess, when we first met, I was feeling a bit frustrated. I was feeling a bit overwhelmed. and really not knowing where to go or what to do next. I was bringing home $700 every 2 weeks, working in education and feeling fearful.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that story because I think early on in business, that's what it looks like for a lot of people. And
Hmm.
I think what happens for them is they start to shame themselves. They feel like there's something wrong with them, like they're not cut
Hmm.
out for it. Like I hear a lot of times they're like, "Well, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is ever going to work." Like all of those self-doubt thoughts that you probably had as well. And I think
Hmm.
it's interesting, right? That you're like, and I remember the conversation with you. I always say this, like, if you're gonna come to a consult call with me, like 100% you're gonna cry. And
Hmm.
not because of usually it's not because of fear, actually, it's because of desire. It's like, I
Yeah.
want this thing so bad. And like
Hmm.
you got to sit in front of me and be like, what? That's actually possible. So we have
Hmm.
desire, we have tears coming from desire, but then we have the fear that comes like,
Hmm.
how am I gonna actually do this? Right? Like, how am I gonna
Hmm.
make this investment?
Hmm.
So for you, what helped you get over the fear when you're making
Hmm.
a decision to invest? Because it's scary in the beginning of your business, especially when it's like you're making $500,000 a month. Sometimes the math doesn't math.
Hmm.
So how are
Yeah.
you able to do that?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that I'm going to say. You're really the first person I think that I've ever connected with that taught me that I could be afraid and do it anyway, that I could be scared and still move forward. We're taught this paradigm, or this kind of lens growing up that if something scares you, what do? You run away. So, it was you held space and, really said it. Yeah, these are gonna seem like big numbers. I was bringing home $500 a month from, working as a psychic medium, and I was bringing home $700 every 2 weeks working in education. And so, you know, you said to me, it's okay to be uncomfortable with that number. But I find that when we have to stretch ourselves just enough, it helps us grow.
Yeah. And for the people, right, that are listening, when you
Hmm.
think about this, like we'll kind of break it down to a couple categories, like three main categories, which I think number one for you, which I think is so fantastic in the results you've been able to create, is
Hmm.
your money mindset.
Hmm.
So let's start with, we talked about where you were. Let's just go right
Hmm.
to the end where you are now. You're launching a book, right? Like it's called The
Uh-huh.
Grief Experience. We're going to talk about that in a second. It's going live on Amazon.
Yes.
Like she's got a lot of results here. So let's celebrate your results and then we'll talk
Okay.
about your money mindset journey that got you here.
Okay. Gotcha. So in the past year or so, I left my full-time job in education. I work as an intuitive medium and mentor full time. I have an office here, which is just south of Saratoga Springs, in New York. I am busy, busy, busy. I have traveled to Maui. My husband and I spent a week in Maui. I've been to Costa Rica now. I've taught in Costa Rica. I traveled to England and studied at Arthur Findlay College this year. So many incredible and amazing things have happened. And now I look forward to setting my revenue goal for the month. And it's become like a game. Like, how can I create this number this month? And so it's become exciting, and it's really allowed me to be who I truly am and be unafraid, to really step into myself with purpose, and gain the confidence truly that I needed so that I could live in alignment. You were sold this nonsense paradigm. Oh, work hard to get what you want. And, you have to take those actionable steps, but struggling is not part of the plan. It's like, okay, when things are in alignment, life isn't hard anymore.
Mm. Yeah. And I wonder if you can remember either something we coached on
Hmm.
or a specific thought that you practiced, right? Because I remember in the beginning, and this is really common, I was the same way in my business. Like, I didn't want to look at money at all. I wanted to avoid it, I
Hmm.
wanted to hide from it. And I
Yep.
think one of the first things we did was just have you start tracking every
Hmm.
dollar that was coming in to
Hmm.
celebrate. Usually we like people teach you budget, expenses. I don't believe in that because it's energy, right? I'm like,
Hmm.
we want to focus on the cash flowing to us. And then what are we going to do with the cash? So for you,
Hmm.
can you describe that transition from like not being able to look at money to like
Hmm.
having it feel more like a game and more exciting?
Yeah. So what happened was, I can still remember clearly you telling me this. He said, women that make a lot of money know exactly how much is in their bank account at all times. And I was like, huh. So it became, instead of, oh my gosh, are we going to have enough? It became, ooh, let's see what's in there. So it was shifting from, do I have enough, to, I have plenty. Let's go see how much I've created. And you really taught me how to do that by tracking. So shifting from, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough to pay the bills? Oh, what am I going to do? And this sense of panic and dread, to, this is going to be fantastic because things are always working out for me. And those words that you shared with me changed my entire life.
And I'm going to add the back end part too, which is
Mm-hmm.
things are always working out for me, even and especially when they don't look like it. Because
Yes.
because even still, right? Like I'm making a lot more money now, but same thing, we
Mm-hmm.
have cash flow ebbs and flows, and same thing still
Right.
happens where I'm like in between client payments and I'm like, what's happening? Right. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, deep breath. It's
Mm-hmm.
working out behind the scenes. When it looks like
Yes.
everything's hitting the fan, it's actually all
Yep.
working out. And
Mm-hmm.
then can you describe what that allowed you to do with your actions, right? Because in the beginning, you were mostly getting referrals.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started to like go out there and start to promote yourself. So I'm curious what happened
Mm-hmm.
there, your mindset shift with that.
Well, I think for me, it was funny because when we first started talking, you asked what I was doing for marketing, and I said I'm not doing marketing, and I said everybody's coming to me via referral, and you're like, that's marketing. Not in that
Yep.
tone. You are very
I'm
loving
so
and
sweet.
wonderful
Thank
about
you.
it.
Tell everybody how sweet I am.
Absolutely. Um, but here's the thing, that kind of made me shift and say, I have a lot to offer. And, I thought, you and I sat and had a conversation about what I've invested in myself, and the skills that I have and the things that I do, and all of those things. And it started to create and generate excitement.
Mhm.
And I started making money from my couch in my pajamas. And
Yes.
even on days where I was having the worst day, I would create great content that would get results, that would get people engaged,
Mhm.
that would get people to ask questions of themselves and others, to get them moving into the direction of them stepping into their life's purpose,
Mhm.
and to connecting with their loved ones in a powerful and profound way. And, referral business is incredible, but if you're having people come to you via referral and they go to your Facebook page or they go to your website and there's nothing there, they're going to be like, well, she was really great, but what is she doing? What's she up
Mhm.
to?
Mhm.
People want to get to know us. They want to know what we have to offer. And that was the most amazing thing. So instead of having the mindset of, oh, I don't know if people are going to like me, am I asking too much? Am I this? Am I that? Am I good enough? I went from that imposter syndrome to, wait a second, I have the ability to connect with spirit. I have the ability to connect with loved ones beyond the veil. I have the ability to teach other people. I have the ability to give people spiritual life path direction so that they can create a better tomorrow for themselves. And when I realized the value that I bring to the table, it became a no-brainer, and there was joy in it.
I
And
have
it
full
was
body goosebumps. That
yeah, it
that
was
right there is a
such
transmission that people
yeah, it
hear.
just it was such an incredibly powerful experience to go from, well, what do I really have to offer? You know, this person over here's doing this and this person's there. So instead of wasting my time comparing myself to other people, it was like, okay, wait a second. Let's put down on paper all the things that you've done and the stuff that you've accomplished and the things. And I started to look at that and I'm like, if I was reading that blindly and it wasn't me, I would be like, oh my gosh, I have to work with this person. So so there joy started to develop in those moments where there was uncertainty before.
Yes. And this is something I teach everybody, which is the celebrations, the wins. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
even when you when you're crawling to the coaching call and you're like, it was a bad week. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
great. We'll coach on that in a second, but what's going right? So
Mm-hmm.
that you've developed that skill as well as to see like what's going right. What do I have? How is
Mm-hmm.
this working? And then you
Mm-hmm.
became a problem solver. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about that because you launched two things that you didn't have. So at the time, you were just doing one-on-ones, an hour long and 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
then you created a couple of programs and then a
Mm-hmm.
mentorship. So I'm
Absolutely.
curious, what thoughts did you need to think about
Mm-hmm.
charging people those expensive prices? We're going to just go back to like selling expensive things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I remember in the beginning, we talked about consults.
Mm-hmm.
This happens a lot, especially for clients who have a big heart or they're an intuitive or they're a
Mm-hmm.
healer, right? Like they feel
Mm-hmm.
some type of way
Mm-hmm.
about sales and being sold to. So
Right.
let's start with that. Like how were you able to launch your programs
Mm-hmm.
and clean up your thoughts about selling?
Mm-hmm. Well, I had an intuitive development class that had been in the works for quite some time, and I was just kind of sitting on it. And I'm like, well, I don't have the space, or I don't this, or I don't that. And it was like I was spending all this time talking myself into why I couldn't launch it or shouldn't launch it instead of, okay, you've studied with some of the most quintessential mediums in the world. Okay. You've been able to connect with spirit from a very young age. And even though you didn't know what that was, you began to develop that in your 30s. What you have the ability and the capacity to do can help everybody, and everybody's born with intuition. They're going to choose to study with this person or this person or this person. Why not me? Why am I not sharing what I have to offer, the value that I can add for other people? And money's an energy exchange. And, one of the things that you helped me realize is that people are always going to find the money from somewhere, and that's not to be negative at all. It's people are going to find the resources that they need when something's in alignment for them. And what I do is in alignment with many, many people. And I was just sitting on it and it was really silly. And so the first thing that you and I did was, okay, so what's your price point going to be for the intuitive development class? And you know, we got I first came up with a number that I thought it should be, um, and was comparing myself to other people, like what are this person charging and that person's charging, and so I came up with a number, and you looked at me and you said, "What number feels aligned to you?" And that's how we settled on the number. So it wasn't super high so that it made me uncomfortable trying to sell it, but it also wasn't ridiculously low where I was devaluing myself. And it was that those magical in the middle kind of moments where that creation occurred. And, you also got me to kind of play the numbers game with the algorithms and things like that, having to post 4 times as much as you normally thought you would have to post to get people to make people aware, and also using the resources I had, which were emails and things like that, to reach out to other people.
Mhm.
Now, when it came to the mentoring, that that took a little doing as well. We launched the intuitive development class. I launched it with you. I think it was January of last year, actually.
Yes,
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and I filled up the class. I had 22 people take the class, and it was marvelous, and people got so much out of it, and it started them on their journeys or enhanced the journeys that they were on. And so we started to kind of look at numbers, and you're like, why are you not mentoring people? Why? You have so much to bring to the table. What would you think about, doing one-to-one mentoring with people? And so we sat with that, and we talked about it, and worked out, the timeline, like how long would it be? What would it work? What I needed to get really clear about what I was going to offer. And the number came in, and it felt aligned.
Mhm.
It felt incredibly valuable. And also, frankly, it was saving people a lot of money, because over time I've studied with the world's best, and I've spent a great deal of money to do it. And so, based on that and my skill set, the number that we worked on just made sense.
Mhm.
And so then it got to, okay, we've done the intuitive development class. Now we're looking at, a mentorship. We have the number for that. And I was a little nervous about that, but I put it out there, and to people, and they were interested. And I was like, wow, they're really interested.
Mhm.
And so, it's become one of my favorite things to do, is to work with my mentoring clients, and you know to help them in whatever way makes sense for them, because I kind of the nice thing is too, it's my program, so I get to custom tailor it. It's
Yes.
not a big box. Hey, here's intuitive development. This is what we're going to work on. It's like,
Mhm.
nope, last week we worked on shadow work and taking care of trauma and stuff like that. This
Mhm.
week we're going to talk about, how the signs that you got and the things you tuned into this week. Or maybe you have an intuitive business, like, what were the actionable steps that you took this past week? So it gave me so much more expansiveness to offer everything that I bring to the table, not just little bits and pieces.
Yes, so good. And I can feel the energy of the alignment that you're in, right? Like you know and feel and sense that value. And
Yes.
to those of you watching her now, you're like, wow, that's great. Like I know that they want it too. And
Hmm.
what I would offer is we coached together for a year, right? We
Hmm.
worked on mindset, and then every week you have homework
Yes.
and you move forward on things. And then
Hmm.
you brought any things that were kind of wobbly and we worked on it
Hmm.
again. So
Yes.
yeah, right? Like that's the way coaching goes, right? Like
Hmm.
I say you have to be open to cry your way to your goal and like truly,
Absolutely.
yeah, like
Oh, we
truly.
did. I did.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Same, me
Hmm.
too. I cry in the corner at least
Yeah.
once a week. Like that's how you know
Yeah.
you're doing it right. But I want to talk about the piece that I think everybody feels a challenge with. I think it's human nature. And it's the consult part when you're doing a consult
Hmm.
call on a Zoom, and then somebody
Hmm.
says it's expensive.
Hmm.
And I think you did so beautifully with that. Like I remember watching you on the call and it clicked for you when I was talking
Hmm.
about, I'll just say how I remember it and then you can add on. But I was
Yeah.
talking about like all we're doing at the end of a consult call when we're inviting them into our world to
Hmm.
say, hey, these results are available for you, is we're
Hmm.
we're allowing the invitation, and
Hmm.
then we're holding space for their fear.
Hmm.
So you that clicked with you because I was like, this is
Yeah.
just the same way you do intuitive stuff, is like you have
Yes.
to like put your conscious mind behind you and like connect to another realm and like so I would
Hmm.
just love for you to describe it in your own words now, like how you're able to have those conversations with people when they're having
Hmm.
fear when they're processing their own limiting beliefs, and
Mhm,
holding the space for them without feeling like you're pressuring them or without feeling
mhm,
uncomfortable. What would you tell the
mhm.
people, like the way that you understand it?
Well, for me, it's saying to them, even before I throw the number out there, we're human and money can make people feel kind of weird. What I want to offer to you is that I'm going to put the number out there and you're allowed to feel all the feelings about it. And I want to hold space for you to feel those feelings. I want to hold space for whatever feeling it is that you're having. And so then I will let them know where my numbers are at. And then I just say to them, what are your thoughts or how are you feeling? And I truly just give them an opportunity to express themselves, Cami, because people need to feel heard. And yeah, numbers are scary. We've been taught in our culture that money can be a very fearful thing. And so when you're talking about people making an investment, it's important to hold space for the emotion around that, for the emotion that may come up. So giving them an opportunity to say, "Oh, that feels like a lot," or "Oh, that's really reasonable for what you're offering." Absolutely. And so what we do is I set the stage and the tone saying, "I'm open and I'm holding space for whatever feelings are that you have." And then just allowing them to express themselves. So I'm not saying, "Oh, this number is really high. It's going to make you uncomfortable," or I'm not saying, "Oh, this number is so incredibly reasonable. You're not going to believe how cheap it is." I'm not expressing any emotion about it. I'm saying to them, "Here is what I offer. Here is what the monetary investment is. How do you feel about it?" And then meeting them where they're at with the feeling around the investment.
Yeah. And what did you have to think for yourself to remain kind of neutral and separate from the money conversation, right? Because we worked on our own money stuff. And then
Mhm,
how do you show up in a consult where you're able to just be present with them, neutral, and hold space
mhm.
for them and their money fears?
Because one of the things that I feel like is really important is, when we talked about setting up the consult calls, and it's just the way that you do them, is we're getting a 1 hour investment from people right out of the gate, whether or not they take the opportunity to work with us one on one or not. We have an opportunity of 60 minutes to add value to someone else, whether they work with us or don't work with us. Of course, the hope is that they will, and they do. But how can I add value to them, to their path, to their experience, regardless of whether or not they decide to invest in mentorship? And so, really, that took so much pressure off of me because it wasn't sell, 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 sell. I didn't feel sleazy. It was like I'm giving them an hour of my time. And whether or not they choose to make an investment in mentorship, I'm still offering value.
Yeah.
And so being able to offer value regardless and to map out a plan for them regardless just takes the pressure off, because it's like I'm I'm empowering myself to get my message out and to help people to add value to their world. And they're getting value by spending an hour with me for nothing, for nothing. And so it takes that whole money pressure thing off.
Yeah.
And so then at the end, it's like, of course you're going to chat about it while you're working and things, but then it's like getting to the end. They know that it's coming. They know
Mhm.
that you're going to have a conversation about it at the end, but you've already added value to their lives regardless.
Yeah.
So there's not this feeling like a used car salesman feeling, because you're already adding value for them and showing them how they can have a better experience, how they can dive into their intuition in a better way, giving them ideas and directions, even if they don't invest.
Mhm.
And so then you get to that conversation at the end and it's not a big deal. It's like, I'm going to throw a number at you. And, money can make humans feel weird and funny.
Mhm.
It's a number. I want to hold space for any feelings that you have about that number after I share that with you. And then I just am quiet and I allow them to express to me how they're really feeling about it.
Mm, that's really good. So I want to offer, there's a couple other pillars I just want to touch on. So
Yeah.
this is what I teach inside of the course. So the other thought I have, if you have, you can pick up whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
next one would be like managing emotions
Mm-hmm.
around if somebody says no. Do you
Mm-hmm.
have anything that you could share with people on like, okay, our best is to remain neutral, but we're all human. I still do it. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I have somebody say
Mm-hmm.
no, I have some feelings, but I
Mm-hmm.
go and process them. And so I'm curious
Right.
for you, if you do have
Mm-hmm.
feelings, how have you been able to
Mm-hmm.
process them around like getting more visible and growing bigger in your business and potentially having
Mm-hmm.
people say no? What's
Mm-hmm.
been your experience with being able to process the emotion?
I think for me, it's really come down to realizing that if it's an alignment for me to work with someone, if we are meant to energetically connect, it's going to happen. And if now isn't the time for them or they don't want to invest, then it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be in that moment. Maybe it will be 6 months down the road. Maybe it will be a year from now. But right now, that means to me, wait a second, this didn't work out because the universe has something better. They have a more ideal client. They have someone that you're going to like working with more. So for me, it's about alignment. And I get to that place of, back to the phrase that Miss Cami taught me, it's okay because things are always working out for me.
Yes. So there's a
And
level of faith and trust in there.
1,000%. And I
Yeah.
just want to give you a real quick example.
Mhm.
Okay. So I had a client decide to back out. And so there was a payment that was due that she wasn't going to make. And I went to my mailbox and there was a check for a class that I had taught at Lilydale back in December for just a bit more than the amount that she would have paid me. So
And
it's
okay,
so
so
funny.
I'm celebrating that like manifestation and faith and trust, but I'm also celebrating a milestone for you, which is
Mhm.
getting to the point in your business when somebody quits. Like that's going to happen to
Yes,
everyone. And like as
absolutely.
we grow, it's going to happen
Hmm.
more, right? If you just look at the numbers, if you got
Hmm.
10 people, one quits. If you got 100
Yep.
people, 10 are going to quit. Like it's just
Hmm.
numbers. So your
Hmm.
capacity to manage somebody quitting and be like,
Yes,
it's fine. Universe got my back.
right.
I'm supported.
Hmm.
Like that enables
Yes,
you to grow more because you can handle it emotionally.
absolutely. And that was one of the biggest shifts for me was working with you because week after week we would have those conversations and do those things. But you know, here's the thing I'm going to say, everybody. Can you do this on your own? Maybe, but you're going to make yourself crazy. I tried it for a long time. Okay. I didn't have someone to stand behind me week after week and let me know that it was going to be okay and that they were just feelings and my life wasn't falling apart. And so, if you have an opportunity to work with this woman right here, please take it. Is it going to be a stretch? Probably. Is it going to feel a little scary? Definitely. But you know what? If I hadn't taken that chance, I wouldn't be where I am now. And, Cami always told me it's not me, it's you. I'm laying the framework. And so I was really afraid too. I'm like, I'm not going to have Cami work with me every week anymore. What am I going to do? I'm freaking out. And there, honest to goodness, have been times where I'm like, oh, and then I go back and I hear her words echo in my head. And I think about those pivotal moments where I was losing my shit, crying my eyes out until my head hurt. And she would sit there and hold space for me. Okay. She would sit there and lift me up. And so I knew it was going to be okay. And she did it for me until I could start to do it for myself. And that's the end game. That's the goal. So if you have an opportunity to work with her in this permission to private group, do it. If you have the opportunity to work with her one-on-one to make a better tomorrow for yourself and your family, do it. It changed my life. And I was afraid and it was scary, but I did it anyway. And now I've traveled to Europe and Costa Rica, and I've taught at Lilydale, and I have a book coming out, and as a contributing author. And so, sometimes life gives us an opportunity, it gives us a chance. And if you're on the fence about working with her, don't be on the fence. Get off the fence and just do it. Just try it.
Much love. And it's 4:44 right as we're recording this.
Of course it is.
So I love it because I can feel your heart, but then also your New Yorker came out and you're like, just do it.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing your experience with everyone. And I'm so literally inspired by what you've created. Like when I look at what's possible, I'm like, look at Deb. Like, just so you know, you're now the little icon like in my program. I'm like, look what Deb can do it, you can. So now you're like the avatar for what's possible. And I know it's just going to continue to grow from here. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about the book. Let's talk about the
Uh-huh.
grief experience. And I'll have you tell me what the outcome is, who some of the authors are, how it came together, and
Absolutely.
then where they can get it. And we definitely want
Perfect.
them to leave a review on Amazon to help you all out, because that's going to be very, very, very beneficial as
Wonderful.
well. So go ahead and introduce it.
Awesome. Okay. So the book that I have I collaborated with is called The Grief Experience: Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and Connection. For me, in the work that I do as an intuitive medium, it's really about helping people process their grief. I had reached out to a grief counselor, and we were kind of collaborating on a few things, and she asked me to contribute to this book. Her name is Kelly Daughtery. And she is just an incredible powerhouse. She's a grief counselor here in my office. I share space with her. And this is her project. There are 25 authors. Everybody has contributed a chapter. And the thing that's so incredibly amazing is that you're getting perspectives of grief from 25 different viewpoints. So Kelly's a grief counselor, and she talks about pet loss. Sherry Davies is a contributor, and she talks about anticipatory grief. Her husband has early onset Alzheimer's in her 50s. There's another author, April Hanna, and she talks about losing her mom and the grief that surrounded that. And there are so many different viewpoints. My perspective was, okay, how did my grief journey show up? And it started at a very young age. And I'm the only intuitive medium in the book. My chapter is chapter 8, and it's talks about creating connection with loved ones in spirit. And so I take people through kind of my story, when grief began in my life from a very young age, and to what did it look like having these gifts and abilities growing up, and all of those things. How did that happen? How did it come together? And so there's such a variety of unique perspectives. And the nice thing is, too, it's not just stories about people's perspectives from grief, although that's part of it, but we give people tools. Like, how did I process my grief? And I offer my tools at the end of my chapter. And everyone's different. We have people that have lost children from overdose, or different experiences like that. We have at-home moms, we have therapists, we have um, intuitive practitioner, like healing practitioners. Like April is a Reiki practitioner, but she also owns, a production company. So there's all different walks of life. There's all different experiences, and that's what makes it so magical. So it really empowers and enables people to be able to look at the book and say, oh yeah, that kind of reminds me of me, or oh yeah, that reminds me of my best friend, maybe this would be helpful for her. And so it's really about getting the word out there to help people to realize, number one, they're not alone, and number two, that there are tools that they can utilize to help them process their grief. The book is going to be dropping on Amazon on the 6th of February. And again, it's called The Grief Experience, Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and Connection. And I would love if you guys would check it out, because the other thing too that I feel is important that I talk about in my chapter is that grief isn't just about death.
Mm-hmm.
Grief is about trauma. Grief is about stuff that we've gone through. And so it's not about just death and dying. That's a part of it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different ways that people experience grief. And there's 25 different perspectives and 25 different amazing and valuable tools. So when it drops on the 6th of February, go grab yourself a copy and write a review. That would be so helpful. And also, if you get a chance, hop on over to my website. It's www.debdecelle.com. That's DEBDECELLE.com. And if you want to learn how to integrate intuition into your everyday life, to grow as a human being and to do so many different magical things that you were born to do, you can hop right on there and schedule a free consult with me. Or if you want to talk to people that you've lost, that have transitioned to spirit, that have died, schedule a reading. I'm much more than happy to help, because this is my life's purpose. This is what I do. And it brings me so much joy to bring a smile to other people's faces.
Thank you for offering that, and just offering too that there, even in grief, you can have
Mm-hmm.
smiles and memories. And one of the things that you told me your client said is, when I do a reading with you, it's like a phone call with a loved one. And that
Yes.
is what gives them that warm, smiling sensation, even if they are
Mm-hmm.
still grieving. So, and that's one of those things, none of us is going to escape grief. Like, it's
Yes.
coming for all of us, because we're all going to lose something, someone, things are going to
Mm-hmm.
change. And I do
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the emotions that human beings are not well equipped. Like, we're not
Right.
really, in this day and age, at least. I think in ancestral times, they were much better with it. But the fact that we're so
Right.
disconnected, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to support each other. So being able to have
Yes.
someone like Deb that you can go to and she understands it and can hold space
Mm-hmm.
for it will be transformational. So thank you for the
Yeah.
work that you do.
And thank you for the work you do.
Thank you. It's so great we get paid doing what we love.
Absolutely.
This is what's going to change the world. So this is what I believe for 2024. When people are moving in alignment, in their own heart, in their own spiritual alignment, I
Mm-hmm.
always say this, right? When we hear something that's like, oh, the economy, right? A lot of people are talking about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
We are the economy. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be out here continuing to serve and help people grow, because I am going to continue to pay my housekeeper. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we are the economy when we just stay focused, we stay in our lane, we don't let
Mm-hmm.
any of these fears come up for us, and we collaborate
Absolutely.
with one another, because
Mm-hmm.
we are the economy. We're creating it. So I love investing in other healers and other light workers and other intuitives and other women and
Yep.
other maybe women who don't have as much opportunity. So
Yep.
that's my mission, is to make a lot of money to keep the economy going, so that I'm giving it back. So I just wanted to offer that. That came through
Absolutely.
intuitively for 2024
Yeah.
collaboration,
Yep.
alignment.
A
Is there anything
thousand
else
percent
you want to
yes.
add as we close
Well,
out?
it's funny as you mentioned that, because when we started talking about big numbers, you said, "What do you want to do when you give back?" And boy, that just blew my mind, because I could see myself writing a check out to Special Olympics, which is something I'm so passionate about working with. people that have disabilities, or, writing a check for a grief camp, or writing a check to help other people, and envisioning that, saying, I have created so much abundance that I'm able to write a check for $1,000 and hand it to somebody.
Yes.
It just, when we start focusing on that too, and having fun and saying, I'm going to create abundance this year, and collaborations are incredible this year. And
Yes.
I have a feeling there's stuff for you and I later in this year,
Yes.
my dear.
There definitely is.
So
We'll have to talk about
I'm
that offline. Yeah.
super excited about that. But yeah, just thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome.
2024 is going to be a stellar year, for everyone, but especially people that are intuitive and do this kind of work.
Yes.
It's just so incredibly fabulous, and I'm just so honored to be on this journey with you. And
Mm.
to everybody out there, if you get a chance to work with Cami, please do. If you get a chance to work with me, please do. And here's to 2024. It's going to be an amazing year.
Love it. Thank you, Deb.
All right.